Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone is good. Hope everyone is well. Hope everyone can hear me. And I hope, no pun intended, everyone has gotten over the shell shock of what's just happened to the markets. And we'll try and dive into some of that a little bit later on. Just checking, seeing people here. Cliff, Jean, Chris, Adam, Stuart. Good. Hope everyone is well. So, I mean, we joke, but we all know why the price fell today. It's an Avenger call. It's standard. It's timed in. It's all right. It's fine. But I do want to actually talk, there's no getting around. It's the 1st of October. Every single crypto personality, and then every week I've spoken for the last 4 months, talked about October. So there's no getting away from it. There's no shying away. We're just going to steer into the skid and have a quick discussion about October today. Is it really a thing? Is it something that's just hype driven? What can we expect this time? Is it different? All of those kind of things. Let's just kind of talk about it. Let's see where we are and what's happening. With that, we'll go over some news. We're going to talk Bitcoin, obviously. We're going to talk Tau, definitely. We're going to talk some other cryptos. Maybe even get onto a little bit of a meme conversation as well. But yeah, if you have any questions, I do have a couple on the sheet. If you have any that you want to discuss, put it in the chat and I will get round to try and discuss it as best as I can. But right now, let's just dive straight in. It's never straight in, is it? So there we go. I mean, this is it. I could finish this Avenger call in 5 minutes because this isn't about what's happening in the news today. This isn't about October, and this isn't about whether or not the economy is recovering. No, this is about we're in a 6 to 7 month channel at the moment. We just hit the top end of it, and it has bounced. And the question really is, how long do we, or how far do we let this thing drop before we accept that actually it is just a bounce from the top of the channel and it's likely that we're going to be moving to the bottom of the channel? And it's a very valid conversation to be having because this is the 3-day chart at the moment. I posted this in chat a couple of days ago and we had bounce from it, and we went from 65.5 down to around about 64.5. It looked like a bit of a bounce, but today's net price action driven it actually all the way down to, I think it got down to, let's see, 60,000, 61,000 pretty much on the nose. That's looking like a pretty big red candle at the moment. And generally we do get those red candles once we do bounce off this. So is that really it? Is this all it was really? That the market has just reacted to the TA that we've been presented? And you're hard pushed to deny with it right now. I mean, we'll sit on it for probably another week. Wait to see whether or not the 60K psychological level holds, etc. We'll convince ourselves October is going to be a thing. And then before we know it, we're in the mid-50s and we're all wondering when this is going to bottom out. So the reality of why I don't think I actually even am bearish, but the reality of why I talk about a lot of bearish scenarios is just so we're prepared. And I think that's the way we need to be. I absolutely hope that this thing rallies to the north in the next few hours, breaks through the top of that band, and off we go to try and reclaim a new all-time high. But where we find ourselves right now, that doesn't look like that's going to be the picture. And when we start to actually break it down with indicators and, can't think of the word I'm looking for at the moment, but EMAs and, chart patterns and all of that, I don't know. I really, I'm not so sure on that one. Now, the rest of the market's kind of looking pretty similar in terms of the candle that we're talking about at the moment. Casper obviously being rocked today as well. We've seen that pretty much come back down and hit this trend line with a bit of a bounce. And the markets have bounced. And I don't necessarily want to get into what's going on in Israel and around the moment, mainly because I'm uninformed about that. It's happening, or it's happened only a couple of hours ago when I was kind of looking more at the charts. Obviously, I was aware of it because I was wondering why price was moving as it is. But I'm sure that's all going to come out in the works. But generally, I am more of a show me the charts and I'll tell you the news kind of guy rather than it's news driven. But that being said, events like this do create uncertainty, which I suppose will scare markets. Anyway, it could be that we look back on the 1st of October, well, 1st of November, we look back on the 1st of October, much like the 5th of August, and go, that would have been a brilliant buying opportunity. Markets were rocked again on the 5th of August with the carry trade unwinding with Japan. There was a lot of concerns within the market, and then guess what happened? S&P, NASDAQ, everything else claimed new all-time highs. So maybe it is just a buying opportunity, and we'll talk about the psychology of that a little bit later on because that's one of the questions. But Casper, it's at the bottom end of this channel. Definitely not been doing as well as our other beloved Tau recently, but still holding its shape within this. And as I say, hopefully gearing itself up for that move up. And if this is a channel, and if the other one is a channel from Bitcoin, then actually we're kind of looking at new all-time highs and beyond. Now, I can't remember where we are in terms of fractal patterns and stage fives and all of that kind of stuff, but I know a lot of you know that quite well. But for me, a new all-time high is kind of just all I'm aiming for there. We look at total three, so market cap excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. And do you know what? This is actually what we want to see. It's quite healthy. Forget the news. We've had a consolidation period for 6 months in a falling channel. We broke through that channel. What do we really want to see for a healthy market? We want to see a retest. And I'm not going to say perfectly because these lines aren't perfect. It's a 3-day chart again. We try and line it up on the 1 day. They'll probably look a little bit better. But you can see it's come back down to this area. And again, today it's bounced off it. I always like to wait for another candle. So that's another 3 days. Well, actually 4 days because this candle's got a day to go until it closes. But right now, you look at that, you just think, okay, we've broken through the channel. We've had the Kobo. Next move really should be up. That kind of aligns with people's conversation with UPTober and potentially a move towards a bit of an alt season. But we'll get into Bitcoin dominance and alt seasons a little bit later on. And then we have Tau. And on the 3-day chart, a little bit of a pause and a stagnation. Today, it kind of hit hard. I mean, at one stage today, we were at 620. Then we went down to 518, currently sitting about 537. So that volatility and that speed that we saw over the past couple of weeks with Tau climbing back up, and I mentioned last week, it could just as easily fall those kind of size candles in a couple of weeks back down to where we were. We've seen the volatility that it's having today. I think this is, players taking profit, utilizing the volatility to just have a look at taking a bit of profit. But it is still holding its ground. We are still above 500. We'll break down where I think it needs to go for it to be a genuine secured area. But also, sort of where we're at. One of the questions is actually ideal buy opportunities for Tau for people who didn't get in. So yeah, the market's been funny today. But in saying that, oops, I don't know why I keep on clicking that. I'm trying to just rearrange this. The activity of the last couple of hours hasn't actually changed what I was going to talk about to start tonight's stream off. I was still going to have a look at how Bitcoin was reacting at the top of that channel, how Casper was down the bottom. Okay, the crypto markets hadn't pulled back as much, but I certainly want to have a look at it. And Tau has been stabilizing in and around that 500 to 600 range for a few days now, which, is decent enough on the 3-day time frame. Whether or not it's creating other patterns on the lower time frames, we can talk about a little bit later on. So let's get into a little bit of news. As I say, I'm going to try not to touch the Israel-Iran stuff. I'm sure loads of information is going to come out of that. So let's just, for me anyway, I'm just going to let that develop and we'll see where it goes. And I'll just speed through the rest of the news of stuff that you probably haven't missed, but just in case. Good old CZ walked out of prison over the weekend. So his 4.5-month sentence is over. What's up next for him? Well, I mean, he could do pretty much anything except for set up an exchange in the US, which I'm sure he probably wouldn't do anyway. But yeah, he is probably the character in the crypto space. I'm sure it'll be good to have him back, and wherever he puts his backing behind, and he's got billions to put behind something. I don't think this is the kind of guy that's just going to sit on his hands and be retired now. I'm sure it's going to do well. So that's something that maybe in a medium to long-term horizon, just have a look at where that is going. There was also some optimism because FTT, it transpired that we were actually potentially looking at, well, not me personally, but those that were caught up in the bankruptcy having their crypto redistributed to them. Sorry, spit it out, Harry. And that caused the FTT token to spike 70% through the exuberance and the excitement of that. Notwithstanding that, Crypto Twitter, as it always does, got hyped up because they assumed that actually everyone was getting paid yesterday. And that wasn't the case. And not only was that not the case, people then started to think, well, how much are we going to get paid? And actually, it looks like those that have been waiting for their big paydays are not going to get the returns that they thought they were. They're actually going to get anywhere from 10 to 25% because what has been agreed in, well, it's not been finalized yet, and I'll get to that in a moment, but what has been proposed in the bankruptcy agreement, settlement, whatever you want to call it, is that they took a snapshot from end of November 2022 when the exchange went under, and you're going to get the dollar value of whatever your crypto was worth at that time, which absolutely sucks if you were sat on 5 Bitcoin or whatever, because you're probably only looking at 100 grand rather than, I don't know, 300 grand or whatever. So 350,000. So yeah, that not the best news, and that kind of took the wind out of the excitement people were talking about. You know, CZ coming out end of September, bullish September, Rectember itself was wrecked. FTX, you know, $11 billion going to go back to heavy crypto enthusiasts that will obviously just put that back into the market. And no, that's not the case. No one really cared about CZ going out of prison. FTX isn't distributing the funds yet, and of the funds they're distributing, it is a minuscule amount, which is a kick in the teeth if that's what you've been waiting for. But good old classic crypto. I don't know if I've got the article. I think it is here, yeah. All of that information I just spouted was actually known, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago. So this article is 6th of September. It explained that they weren't going to get the funds until, where is it? I think it's October 20. No, it's not. The hearing is on October 7th. So we knew it wasn't going to be before that. And they even went in to talk about somewhere in here. I can't see it at the moment. The amount of money they were going to get back. And I really can't find it. But it actually said somewhere in here 10 to 25%. Why can I not see those numbers? It's like they are just oblivious to me. Or maybe I've just made it up. I'm certain I read it in there anyway. I can't bother to read it all through. You'll just have to trust me. No, definitely can't find it. I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm sure it was in there somewhere. But yeah, you know, the information was out there, but that didn't fit with the narrative of October. So let's just ignore what the actual facts were, and let's just let the hype take over. And it's annoying when that happens, but ultimately we all get carried away with that kind of stuff. Now, I do think that just the resolution of FTX is what the industry really needs. Granted, it sucks that you may only get 10 to 25% of your funds back, especially when you think about these guys have been trading that, well, maybe not trading it, but they've been sat on that funds and accumulating. Solana went from $8 to 150 at the moment or whatever it is. I mean, imagine if you were a Solana bag holder and you get the $8 valuation of that. So where's the rest of that money going? Well, we know the legal fees are absolutely through the roof. And we know that there are other creditors, debitors, I can never remember which way around it is, that are ahead of the customers that will likely see a larger chunk of that. But we'll know a bit more as of, you know, this time next week, once the bankruptcy agreement has either been approved or declined. So maybe we can talk about that next week. So let's have a look at Bitcoin. I think that's what everyone really wants, isn't it? So the old classic, just updated it this month or today for the new month. No change at all. All we can really say is, I mean, I put it on the 12-hour chart, but let's just zoom in because we see it a little bit better. I couldn't get on high block today. It was down. So I've had to, you know, take a bit of a punt with where it is. But what we do know over the last week is it's pretty much taken out this previous liquidation area here. And what have we been doing? We've been resting on that 618. Now, remember, this is a fib that's taken from the high down to the low. And I know you can probably have a look at it another way, but you know, pretty much for the last 2 weeks, we have just been sat on that 618 level, weakening kind of level, really, and we've fallen through it. And I don't think there's any real surprise there. But the question now is, forget the news, forget all of that. This has served us quite well. What are the levels that we should really be looking at? Well, funnily enough, the 60,000 level, psychological level that it is, which is the 0.5. It's a 50% retracement of that overall move. And then maybe down at 57,000. But the real question that I touched on at the beginning is, at what stage do we maybe not wave the white flag, But at what stage do we go, actually, we may have a little bit of a problem here, and it's over. It's not going to be an October at all. I think we kind of got to wait until that plays out. But I would also suggest that this fib level itself is probably not the best to judge that one. If I was to not do that, if I was, what's going on there? Take this, get rid of that. Is it not doing it? It's locked. Right, sorry, just bear with me a second. Let's unlock that. So if we were to throw another fib in, and let's just do this rise up here. You know, I'm a body to body type of guy. Okay, so I think this tells us a bit more of an accurate picture. Maybe the figures are roughly the same, but this is going from the rise down here from beginning of September up to the relative recent peak, 66,000 or just under. We kind of see that what I was talking about before, where it was resting on that 618. Well, this is now the 236, same sort of thing. Collapse through. Look at that wick straight down to the 382 at 61,000, and it's bounced back up. So these are the new levels. 59,600 is kind of that 60k level we were talking about, and the one below that before was 57,200. This is 58. So these for me are the kind of levels I'd be looking at, and this is where I'm trying to see whether or not we've got a failed rally within that. And the reason I say that, have I got another chart somewhere? No, let me just get a clean chart up. I mean, the weekly kind of shows it perfectly. I mean, you can see it. I don't need to draw it, but you can see it. You know, we are still doing that. I mean, that final bit may not be the path down. And that might not be what we want to talk about or what we want to accept. But at the moment, the falling channel hasn't broken. At the moment, we are in a 6-month downtrend, and we have failed at the previous hurdle. Now, this is where things get interpreted differently by different people, because it's probably only, let's just get rid of those drawings, only a few weeks ago where we celebrated that, or even a week ago, because we'd broken this one. We were like, okay, we've formed a new high, but we've turned around before this one. So it's a case of, where do you accept it? Well, what I want to see then is if this is a break of a downtrend, and I talk about this all the time, it's not just that. We want to see now a higher low and then another higher high. So it takes a while for these to form out. Okay, that's the move. If we're saying that we're out of this trajectory now and we want to break that, getting one high is fine. We need to close above 54,000, which seems fairly realistic, and then form above here, because this could go all the way down and still break it as long as it closes above 54,000. But then we want to see this third stage up here. Then we can accept it's done. But until then, we look on the bigger picture. We go out on a higher time frame, and unfortunately, you know, that's just a blip in there. That seems a lot clearer. Bijan's put cup and handle. Are you talking about the monster cup and handle? Because if I'm not thinking of, I've seen people talk about this. This is going back from November 21, so the previous peak, couple of year cup, and then we've got this handle forming. And absolutely, you know, you can't deny that's there. It's exactly the same as a bull flag, though. You know, it's in the outcome is what is expected more often than not, which is this bull flag we've been waiting for is expecting the same kind of outcome there. The levels they need to go to, you know, for me, I flip back to this chart here. We get rid of that. Just zoom it down. I have this white line on. You know what that white line is, and I keep extending it, but keeping it true, because for me, you know, this is likely to be on our next major breakout, our biggest test. And depending on how long it takes for us to get there, we launch there tomorrow. It's 83,000, maybe it's at 90,000. And the reason is just the amount of interactions we've had with this line. And so you know, sometimes it doesn't hold. Sometimes it bunches straight through, but more often than not, there's some sort of reaction on this line above and beyond. So that's why I keep that on there, and that's where it's going. So going back to whether it's a bull flag or it's the cup and handle, you know, I hand drew these, but that's exactly kind of where I see those things going. Now we get into, so when could that happen? Well, if, and it is an if, let's just clear these again. We'll keep it on the weekly just for ease. But if this is a rejection, it's going to take a couple of weeks to get back down there, a couple of weeks back up. So that's October done. And then you got to break through. Now, of course, we can do that in 2 weeks. We've done it there, that same distance in 2 weeks. We've fallen down in a week and a half all the way. So, you know, it's going there. But then when we look on the sort of like the wider macro picture, which I'm going to talk about later, and see, well, what events could help motivate the market into doing those sort of things, then, you know, end of October, beginning of November, there's a massive event happening. 5 weeks today it's actually happening. That being the election. Now, 5th of November, the day of the election, is actually not the most important date. The most important date is the 6th of November, because that's when the markets reopen after the election, and we kind of know which direction it's going. So we'll have an event called day of the election, and then we'll really see how the market's doing the next day when we know the result of it. But yeah, that sort of time frame, if we're up and down, and generally it's a 4-week period, down and up. I mean, it was a bit slow to start off with, although you could say that was a down and up, then a down and up. But they are getting tightly bunched. That's not great England. But anyway, break 50k and we definitely lose that structure. Yeah, I mean, we have broken 50k. It's whether we break and close. And I'm all about the wicks help at least tell part of the story, but the main body of the novel, the story, whatever, is in the body for me, hence the body. So I don't mind if we wick below it, but we go through there, and that's not what I wanted. Let's just go to this one. You know, where could it take us to? 50k down there, couldn't it? This is a 3-day chart, but it could. I mean, you know, I think the only thing we can do, and bearing in mind, I think most of us are, if not 100%, 90% in the market, then we need to always be looking at what can catch us out, because only looking at the good times is easy because we're already in. What catches us out is if it doesn't go that way. So I'll keep on talking about these kind of events until enough people tell me to shut up, or the market tells me to shut up, because we go flying up. But that's where we are. But we'll go and have a look at Bitcoin in smaller time frames in a moment. Let's just talk about October, and we've got to put this chart on. I mean, or this table. This table, it looks broken to me, doesn't it? Because wait a second, and I too was one of them. Rectember, you know, more often than not, the September ends in the red. Well, actually, not only did it end in the green, but it was the second best September on record, totally defying, you know, previous discussions I've had, people on crypto Twitter have had, we've had in Discord, etc. And so, you know, what are these monthly returns? What is this seasonality that we talk about? And I put a little poll up there. You know, is it written in the stars? Is this an absolute cast iron? It's going to happen, or is it just something that? And I call us, we're the suckers. We're retail. We just like to get behind and give us some sort of comfort in making a decision that has absolutely nothing to do with this. And, you know, I mean, there are times where September has pulled out greens, but more often than not, and that's what trading is. It's not about exact, it's about probability. So you can only go with probability. More often than not, September ends badly. And September, for a time, it wasn't the best, you know, great month. I mean, we look back at where we got down to in September. What did we get to? 52,000. I mean, great rally from that. Matter of fact, it didn't stop. This was right at the beginning. But yeah, it had the depths or the signs to start off with that this wasn't going to be a great month, and the recovery was just as impressive. But I talked about this last week, and it's just kind of, you know, you put a line smack down the middle of that. I mean, it's not kind of almost a mirror. I wonder where we're going to see this. Hopefully, some sort of bounce down and then a move up. But we'll leave that for another time. So here we are in October. We're day one. We're not even day one. We're actually only 20 hours if you're in the UK into October. We're already 2% down. Not a great sign. In recent history, we've only seen a 4% dip in the last 10 years. And then when Bitcoin was in its infancy, we saw its greatest volatility in the month of October. But we can't really count this month of October because it's 1 day old, not even. And I've already seen people draw parallels to the fact that the last time, let me get another chart up because the data is different. And I prefer using the charts or the table that I had, but I want to show you what people are talking about on something else. Because now what people are saying is, well, the last time we've had green Septembers following on from red Octobers that are in back-to-back years, we had a hell of a run in October, November, December, and that's what they're grasping on at the moment. I think we're just clutching at straws. It's okay to draw data from in my opinion, from what happened each month. We've got 12 on this chart. We've got 12 on the one I was looking at before. What have we got here? We've actually got 12, 15 years worth of data. It's not a bad set of data for October. And we can kind of say, well, actually at the moment, 10 of the previous 14 have ended in green. I think that's fairly decent odds. You'd probably take those odds. But then when you try and sort of find some sort of correlation, because I've seen people go, oh, but look at what it did in election years. And, October is strong in an election year, 16 strong in an election year. Oh, wait a second, 12, it failed that one. And the reason I can say it failed that one is because this table doesn't go back to 12. But my table, well, it's not mine, the table I use does. So I'm happy to stick with the months. And, it's day one in October. I'm not ruling out October at all at the moment. But we were proved wrong in September. And maybe, the fact that we preached about it so much caught us out. And let's not forget, and I still stand by this, we've just had a change in economical policy. And, in 14 of the last 15 written occasions that's happened, and again, it is just probability, that has led to a crash or a recession. And typically what we've seen is markets move up for anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks before they correct. And so why would this time potentially be any different? We've had a change in monetary policy. Okay, markets have still got a little bit excited because we've seen that change is coming, but then the reality may well hit. And lo and behold, let me get that clean chart up again. Let's hit us on the daily. So when was the monetary? It was the 18th, wasn't it? So let's have a look. 18th. That was it. How many days has it been since then? I mean, 13 days. I probably could have worked that one out. 13 days. Well, it was 2 to 3 weeks we've seen previously. So actually, are we just following that pattern? And, this one doesn't show it as well as maybe the S&P. Again, if I can get the right date, there we go. Follow it on, So that period, 21 days, let's call it there, potentially up to there. Let's move this down so we can actually still see the bars. We had the rate cut. We rallied to a new all-time high. Yes, it's dropped today, but it hasn't rolled over yet. 2 to 3 weeks kind of starts from tomorrow. Markets are going to close pretty soon. Maybe it is. Just replaying what we saw in 2007, 2001, 88. Can't remember all the other ones now off the top of my head. And we're just suckers into thinking it. And with that kind of mindset, Bitcoin, I don't think it's there as the store of value potentially that gold is at the moment. I don't think that's the safe haven that will protect us in October. So there's plenty of outside influences that could impact that. And, it's difficult. It's difficult as a trader or as a spot holder or whatever it is that you're particularly doing to try and understand what's happening, especially when you get people, whether written in Discord or talking like this or on crypto Twitter, giving so many different conflicting informations. But what I can tell you with 100% accuracy, and this is 100% accurate, I've got the right chart up. Nope, let me get it. With 100% accuracy, every single crash has been recovered and turned into a new all-time high. So, I mean, that's capitalism for you, I suppose, isn't it? But that is maybe where we're at. Maybe, the crash comes and we just have to sit and wait. And I saw someone put in Discord, we're just going to be buying for longer. And maybe that is wherever it is. And I'm using the S&P because the data obviously goes back a lot further. But every single crash in history has been recovered. So even if we do see it, whatever the pain may be, we should see ultimately a recovery of whatever assets we happen to be in at the time of the crash. Where was I? If we have a look at this with total market cap, and because everyone talks about that table with Bitcoin, but even if we are in Bitcoin, we're not 100% in Bitcoin. So maybe it's actually better having a look here. Now, the data isn't necessarily different as such, just the percentage and the sort of the average returns on each. But I think this actually gives a better reflection of potential that we may have in terms of our portfolios. What is a shame, and unfortunately you can't get it on here. You can get loads of other tokens. But what would have been nice is if they had total 3, so we could see how the market does without Bitcoin. Probably have a lot redder in October, maybe in the early years, because there's just less altcoins out there. But that sort of shows us where the data is, but the data is less. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking, and they do. There's one for Tau. Now, the data is not a lot, but October last year was not a bad month, 54%. November was pretty good as well. So that's sort of like Q4, and historically, that's, across the board. Q4 is a good month, a good quarter. And so I'm wanting to talk about Tau. There's not really much to talk about Tau. I was just showing you that it actually does have Tau. You can't really trust the data here. We haven't even got an entire full year, calendar year yet, because we missed the beginning of January of 2023 and we haven't got the end of 2024 yet. But the picture is building. But with October, title is just a title, isn't it? Scarlet Witch or Bullish Switch. Are we being tricked into something? Are we being fooled into, like we were in Rectember? It's always going to go down in September. We were caught out. And October, are we just hoping that it's all going to go flying up? And then we're going to get caught out because macro events like what's happening in Iran, the port strikes in the US, affecting the economy to a stage in which the recovery that the US have spent the best part of 2 years trying to define stumbles, and that leads to fewer rate cuts. And we had Powell even talking yesterday. And, I don't really take what he says at these conferences I take it with a grain of salt. He was talking about slowing down the rate cuts and not having to have the fast rate cuts that we sort of thought they might utilize on the dot plot and all that. And the estimate was they'd have anywhere from 100 to 125 basis points cuts, by the end of this year. And we had 50, 75 left, but, he's kind of suggesting actually maybe we don't need to be so drastic. And that's sort of, maybe he's trying to balance that in terms of the data that they're seeing from inflation, because ultimately they can't bring the interest rates down too fast because they're still trying to get inflation under control. Now, whether or not you believe the inflation rate currently sits, it's like 2.3 or something. Let's just make sure I got it right. Sorry, 2.5 it sits at. We've got a few days till the next one. So, their mandate is 2%. So they're getting pretty close, whether or not that's, external factors driving that down because there's a big vote beginning of November. I'll leave that to yourselves. But that's a kind of thing that could just totally scupper October. And ultimately, the wider macros don't give a toss about fancy little names for periods over on crypto Twitter. And so, yeah, I take some of that with a pinch of salt. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page there. But what I would say is I'm actually quite impressed with crypto. I don't know if you can see it because my face might be in the way, but a fear and greed index at the moment only of 50, and tomorrow's likely to drop, obviously, but we're in neutral territory. We've had a rally up from the 6th of September. People are getting super excited because it's October and all of that, but actually fear and greed sat at 50. No one's really getting too excited yet, and that's what we want. The quicker we get back up to greed, it's highly more likely that we're going to see that dreaded correction. Now, when I had the alt season tracker on earlier on today, this was actually at 49, and it's dropped back down. So I didn't realize this updates like hourly or what have you. I suppose it makes sense because it goes off what the price of the top 50 performing assets are over 90 days, including today. But I was thinking, well, we're climbing out that Bitcoin season, moving towards alt season, still not confirmed yet, but, again, slowly moving up there, and that's a positive way of looking at things. But one of those external factors that I think we need to have a look at is the wider fear and greed. So this is for the traditional markets. And this is what it was yesterday at the close, 75. We just clicked into extreme greed, and it's not a pleasant place to be. We're at all-time highs, not quite on NASDAQ, but all-time highs on the S&P. Gold's at all-time highs. Everything seems to be flying in the right way. I think oil's stalling, etc., maybe sort of giving us some indication of where things are going. We know that some big players are starting to cash out already, going back to cash, or at least moving funds into safer assets, bonds, etc. So never a good position when we start to see the traditional markets creep into extreme greed. But again, this is actually when the market opened today, it actually started to drop that down to 70 with obviously what's been going on. So there's definitely some reasons to just be cautious. And I at first I thought maybe Simon had done the dirty on me when he titled my cuddle talk, because I can't remember the exact word he used, but something like Harry's extremely bearish compared to me or something like that. And it's not that I'm necessarily trying to be bearish, but I am just preparing myself if something is to happen. And I do believe we will see a drop in sort of the price or the markets. And in that video, if you've not seen it yet, spoiler alert, what I'm left with is it going to be a crash that's recovered like in 2019 in a matter of months and we avoid a recession, or are we going to see a recession? And you can watch the rest of the talk to kind of see what the implications of both of those may be. But yeah, it doesn't scare me off. It doesn't mean that I'm not bullish. I'm just mentally preparing myself that something may happen because previously the odds have said it. And for me, as much as I want to get excited, and I would have been a lot more excited about October had some of these other events not sort of crept up. So I got to admit, and the poll there doesn't really matter. I got to admit, with sort of 2/3 of you, I think it probably is a bit of a suckers thing. Yes, historically it has done well, but I would argue that it's probably more just for how well other markets have done. Traditional markets have just helped bring crypto along. And I do get that seasonality, and trust me, that seasonality in the data that's in things like the S&P is a lot longer. We've also got earnings reports that will come out to help sort of move that along, and crypto just gets carried with it, Bitcoin especially. And I think I touched on this either a week or 2 weeks ago, but now that we've had that first rate cut, we don't get the next rate cut until the 7th of November, the next FOMC till the 7th of November, which is 2 days after the election, probably 1 day after the winner is announced, unless, things happen like we did last time, but let's leave that there. And so there's not too many days of data that's getting, that's going to potentially help Mr. Powell and his team try and understand where they are and make that decision on the amounts of rate cuts. And one of the things that this goes through, this is what I wanted to show you, but it doesn't enlarge. Hopefully you can kind of see it. Of all the dates, we've got non-farm payroll. So that comes out the first Friday of every month. So between now and the election, there's 2 of those. Obviously, non-farm payroll is a very healthy indicator on the state of the economy, because we're all talking about unemployment and everything else. So that's massively going to help Powell either validate his decisions or take a course correction. So that's on the 4th of October and the 1st of November. And then we've got CPI. And that's, a week and a bit's time. And that for me is probably it. If we see that inflation's still falling, bearing in mind we're quite close to that 2% mark already, I think that's it. Maybe we do get an opportunity to press on with another sizable rate cut, 50 basis points, preferably get us closer to that. But other than that, it's relatively quiet. And if you're one of those people that believes in external factors impacting the crypto market, and I definitely I sit in that camp. I believe that the traditional markets influence the crypto markets, not necessarily because of world news events like what's happening over in the Middle East, although I accept that war and invasions generally do cause crashes that are very quickly brought up. Just have a look at what happened in February 2022, 23. When was the invasion of Ukraine? Can't remember how long that's been going on for now. But yeah, so interesting to see how those plan out. Obviously, Friday's the first real test then with non-farm payroll. Let's see whether or not they're on top of that. But these are sort of key moments where you can expect volatility in the market, but two, generally give you that direction of ultimately where we're going to go. Right, we'll have a look. Have a look at Bitcoin now on the lower time frames. What's that? That's Nasdaq. Don't worry about that. So 15-minute time frame, bit of nosebleed territory there. Let's take it to the daily and then we'll work from there. This needs tidying up. Apologies there. So in terms of, I found it quite difficult to try and find on the higher time frames that market maker kind of pattern. What I would say, and I talked about this last week, is we probably did have some sort of M formation and moving into drop one, recovery back, maybe a drop two. But then you're like, well, wait a second, Harry, drop three, W formation. Are we now coming out of this? And is this, rise one of that W formation? And this is just some sort of pullback. We have pulled back to the 50 EMA on the daily. And so it's but this is all very compact in there. Now, this is daily. This is going back to March. And I'm sure if we drove that, we can kind of see it. But I don't know. I am actually going through all my old notes again because I feel like, sometimes you just need refreshers after going through it. But I don't feel as comfortable, as confident in that. I think it's just because you can kind of make W's and M's almost everywhere. Could be an M there. And then you go down to the 12 hour, you maybe have a W there and another M here. And then you're like, well, actually, it feels like I'm more talking, or I should be talking on the lower time frames. But we can see that there. But what we can also see, even on the daily, is we're kind of smack bang at the moment within vector candle recovery zones, trap liquidity, where fast movement has actually caused traders to be trapped. And so at least it gives us some sort of direction of where we're going. Now, the ones to the south of the 50 EMA with the blue, the green, and the blue down here, they've got the 50 EMA and well, except for the one closer to the 200 EMA protecting it. So there's a decent amount of resistance there. Now, this one that's happened yesterday, it's quite close. And so, a bounce off today. And when this candle closes, it's red at the moment. We will expect that to turn into a red vector candle then. An obvious turnaround would be easier, finding the support on the 50 EMA, moving back up to reclaim those. Absolutely possible. Let's try and go down some lower time frames and see. This is a messy chart. Sorry there. So the 4 hour, I'm starting to see actually, we had sort of some sort of M there, W here, and then it's like 1, 2, 3. Oh, you can't see because I haven't zoomed it out right. So we had, let me write those again. 1, 2, 3, and then is that the M? 1, maybe 2, is that what we're seeing? And we haven't finished 2 yet, or 2's going to start to consolidate anytime now. And again, I take that down to lower time frames, and maybe that is what we see. We saw, a nice 3-week, almost 4-week move up, 4 hour time frame. That kind of pans out. I can buy into that. This one seems quite sudden, so you've got to be careful because this could actually just all be one. And it may actually be one. Just that period there. I think it's just a bit short. But that could be one. And if that's the case, if this is a new cycle, unfortunately, maybe we do have that to go. How far down it is, don't know. But that kind of ties in with lost it. Wherever it was, rejection up here, just working our way, unfortunately, back down there. So what's that mean? What have I done different? What am I doing different in terms of Bitcoin? Nothing. Actually, I didn't buy it today because it hasn't transferred into the accounts to do that, but I still buy it monthly, and I will still buy that tomorrow if it is, or Thursday, whenever it clears. I'll just buy it whatever the price will be. And hey, hopefully, lucky me, that day delay may have got it a little bit cheaper. But we can see here, obviously it's wicked down, but at the moment with 13 minutes to go, resting on the 200 EMA, also bounced off the 800 EMA, started to claim some of this vector candle, not quite a 50% recovery, that would have been there. But you know, so maybe we find a bit of breathing space here. 200's not necessarily to be trifled with, and the 800 certainly not. Yeah, I think maybe that's a place we can find a breather. But if we are seeing that this has been a reversal and we are in a drop of some sort, D1 whatever, D1 maybe D2, probably more likely D1, then that whatever that consolidation period is could be short-lived. Okay, let's go on to Tau. I mean, that's what we want to talk about, isn't it? And it's John. I don't know which John it is. I will, Bijan, I know you put a lot of comments in there. I will get to those once I've answered John's comment. Missed out on getting back into Tau. Do you have any good time to enter again? Well, I would argue now is a great time to enter again, even if the price moves down. Because if you're in and the price moves down, it gives you an opportunity to get out and try and recover that. If you're not in and it moves up, you're then asking yourself, what's the right question? And this goes back to this, that isn't me, giving you financial advice. And I'm not skirting away from that into that. I'm talking about the psychology of what that decision is. So I don't know, people started moving back in. It's pretty much, I don't know, it's probably like down here. And there's conversations with, and I sort of moved in late and sort of phased my way in. I bought new Tau up here. So, I was comfortable in doing that in sense of, right, it's moved down, it's moving back up. I still think it's a good asset. We'll buy and we'll see where things are going. But just take it back to what we've had. So we've had that sharp move up. And this was, and we were talking about all the way up, and look at the sort of almost the uniformity, even of the vector candle recovery zones, green then blue, green then blue, well, blue then green that time around, green then blue. It's just, there's a lot here. And I will get into potentially where we're at, but just look at price action at the moment. So I drew this white line a couple of days ago because there was other people in Discord talking about, potentially sidestepping, and you kind of felt that there was those that felt they got in late, worrying that maybe they could make some extra bang for them gut by sort of just sidestepping out. But, the reality of it is the move being as strong as it was with very little pullbacks at the time, doing a sidestep, the risk to reward just wasn't there in case it moved away. But what have we actually formed here? Some sort of support level, which was the 50 EMA. And let's put it on the daily. Let's see what we can see here first. So it's the 10 EMA on the daily. On the 4, that's one we were just looking at. 1 hour. Okay, starting to build it here. Let's go back to the 4. Just wanted to see what it was before I started rattling on about this. But that's sort of like 520 to 530 zone. A lot of action in and around there. And generally, the bodies are above it. Wicks below, but the bodies recover and close above it. So showing a good area of support and some consolidation. So, yeah, okay. People might have been selling, but there were people wanting to buy and still wanting to buy in and around that level. And price action today has done exactly the same. So we've had 2 4-hour candles. This one closed in 10 minutes, immediately bought back up. Hit down on the 50 EMA, bought back up. This one here, okay, down through the 50 EMA, but bought back up in and around 510 level. And now we are battling with that 50 EMA level. So this could be the pullback that ultimately leads to that move up. And whether or not Bitcoin, Tau's totally outperformed Bitcoin over the last couple of weeks. So, hey, maybe the rest of the market moves down, Tau moves up like it has been doing. I'm not trying to get into that, just looking at this chart, just from what I see and from the psychology point of view of this is giving you an opportunity to get back in. I mentioned earlier, we were at 620 earlier on today. We're now down at 530 and a little bit of change. You know, $90 swing on the price action from today. And if it is this consolidation, we see that other bounce, you may not get that other opportunity. If you buy in now, we lose it. Two things are likely to happen. One, we'll probably get some sort of Kobo before continuation back down, giving you that opportunity. But two, there will be areas on the way down, and it's risky sidestepping. Of course it is. But if you can find a decent area to get out, and even if you only get back in 5-10% on the way back down, it's still more than what you already had. You've got to factor in the loss of stake, and I completely get that. But for someone that hasn't got back in, you know, I don't know where you got out, but I know a lot of people, so some people got out right down at the bottom here. It's 100%, almost 200% gain that you've not got back in on. And it's difficult. I get it. The speed at which that climbed up, and I was the same. You're always thinking there's got to be a pullback. It's got to be a pullback there. Don't go in on a large green candle. But for whatever reason, it defied it. I think there's potentially an opportunity to get back in. And if we do lose that support, as I mentioned last week, the speed at which that went up, the 12-hour, look at it. And again, look at the uniformity of the vector candles. It just shows you how little pullback there was. That could easily be replicated. Now, for those of you that have not been listening to what I've been saying, because you can't ignore what you're seeing. Yes, obviously there's a double top. And we're right on the neckline at the moment. And that's on the 12-hour, the 8-hour, the 4-hour, yeah, maybe the 1 hour. Oops. But it's on plenty of them. We'll just stick with the 4 for now. And so, yeah, I accept we can't necessarily ignore that. But if we were just playing the double top, just the double top, nothing else, you know, what are we looking at before that pattern plays out? Take from the absolute worst case down to 440. So that's only that shoulder there, you know. And by the time it falls there, 200 is probably caught up. It would be a relatively decent expectation of some sort of reaction from that. Okay, let's throw on other things that we like to do. And there might be a bit too much information. So let's just hide some stuff. Let's certainly hide that. Let's just hide that for now. And then let's go on to the 12-hour. So 440 is what we were talking about beforehand. I don't know where best to take this. We take it from the very bottom to the very top. It's not showing us too much. The 50's disappeared because it's on this one. You can kind of see it there. Okay, let's move it to here. Okay, maybe a little bit better information from that there. Why do I say this one looks a little bit better? Well, the fib levels are lining up with these breakpoints. And so, yeah, we've not broken this level yet, but we can kind of see that 440 zone. So the 382 here, that ties in. Then we've got the 50% recovery at sort of 410. Nice little break there. And the 618 at 380, again, with that period of sort of like rest point, if you will, there. So that one kind of, you know, would be sort of where I was looking at. So yes, this may play out. And, you know, where do you draw the neckline? I'd still draw it body. I'd draw it round about there. It's probably not showing up very well, but round about there. And then, yeah, that move down. Let's try and overlay it now. Don't want vertical line, I want trend line. I'm going to do it from wick to that, only because we're on the 12-hour here, not the 4-hour, which I was on before, but just to give you that picture. And actually, look at that. That one actually falls at 450 now. And so, even if it were to go there, I think that's for me almost feels better than it just resting here, because at least we've had some pullback, yeah, before a move up. I'd feel more comfortable with it there. I probably wouldn't feel as comfortable because I'd bought a little bit at 575, but it is what it is. For me, I know I'd done a few of these side steps on the way down. The data, if you will, just felt a lot easier to interpret on that move down from 700 because the move up wasn't as rapid as this. And whatever sparked this enthusiasm, whilst it may be waning now, it was kind of undeniable. So it's kind of hard to make that judgment call right now. And, you know, I would need, before I felt confident in a side step, would probably be some sort of bounce down and then another reaction and down. I'm not saying it's there that I do it, but, you know, some kind of movement down that says, yeah, okay, I might miss the first one, but maybe there's an opportunity for at least one more outage. So, John, that kind of is where I'd sit. I think today's price action may present you with an ideal opportunity. Sorry, Bijan, you put loads of stuff on there. I'm going to try and go back to some of that. Russell still looking bearish. I know you've talked about the Russell 2 and the correlations between total 3 for a while, double top forming, which again, I mean, we'll look at some of the altcoins later on. Maybe not double tops, but certainly running into some sort of long-term resistance. Weak macros, Dow Jones, yep, get that. Fractal pattern still looking similar to 2007. Again, Bijan, I don't know if you've seen it, but on that talk and the cuddle that I did, I go into 2007 fractal pattern quite a bit, using some of the stuff that I know you've put out on Discord. So thank you for that. We have a very similar Russell 2 weakness to 2007. Yep. 2007, we also saw large caps making the majority of the gains, with small caps being left behind. Okay. I mean, hey, it's NVIDIA only, really, isn't it? But it's doing well. It's doing well. Maybe last couple of weeks, not so much. This time around, the Russell 2K is even more dire straits than 2007. This is the first crypto rally in which the Russell 2K has been left behind. 2013, 17, 21's always moved in tandem with alts. This time, we haven't really seen that. I got the Russell 2. Let's just put that on. Let's overlay it. Just whilst we're talking through these. Oh, what is it? This one. Oh, and that let me have a... That one lets me have a new price scale, but this one doesn't. There we go. Okay. So this is 3 days. Let's go weekly. It's loading. It's thinking about it. Let's get rid of all the others. Just going to confuse it if it matters now. I don't know. I mean, yeah, okay, last couple of months maybe. I got a trade in there somewhere. Something looks like it's tradable. Anyway, don't know what that is. Kind of get what you're saying, but you know, this one's gone slightly down. This one's just kind of moved sideways. It did have a better move up beginning of July. Let's have a look. XRP ETF application and around missile strike on the same day. What are the odds? Well, hey, stable coin, you know, flight to safety of XRP, price never moving. That's the way to go. Oil making lower highs. Yep. Not great when the demand for oil dries up. Russell 2K not got close to April 21 peaks of broad market. Okay. Regards to events, the broader stock market is still weak and relying on 7 large caps around the 8% of the gains. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about sort of the NASDAQ and sort of the FANGTM or whatever they are these days, really holding those up. And again, you know, end of October, we're going to see a lot of the Q3 earnings reports come out for these larger cap companies. So again, could have some interesting implication. If inflation falls too much, can't we get deflation? China is suffering badly for deflation at the moment. And do you know, China's injection of cash last week, no one really seemed to get. Now, what I would say is I understand it that China's on bank holiday at the moment. So one, the Asia market's pretty weak because it doesn't have China in it. China's obviously helps drive a lot of that global liquidity. If they're not doing anything, because on bank holiday, I can't remember if it's like a week-long bank holiday. Certainly like today and yesterday. Russell 2K for evil total looks more in line. Okay, right. Well, cheers for those. Sorry, gone through those. Let's have a look. So that was Tau. Let's get rid of that. Throw that on, that on, that on, that on, that on, that on, that on. Let's get rid of that now. I mean, you look at that chart. Sorry, it's still Tau. Yeah, you wouldn't be upset. Well, we'd all be upset. But if we was to look back at this chart in a couple of years' time and it fell to 350 and then bounced from there, you'd think, yeah, that makes sense. You know, massive move up back to 350 and, you know, support. And again, you know, you look at It was obvious now looking in hindsight, but I mean, look at that. What is wrong with me today? Double bottom of some sort, or bottoming pattern with triple bottom, I suppose. It's a 3-day chart, so again, not as accurate, but clear level to bounce and then straight through that level. We should have all been buying completely in at 370. I got my last of my side bag in at 450. I've been on Delta now. I've done the update of my Tau, and at one stage I'd 3x where we were in March. It's only about 2 and a bit x'd it now. That last side step, kind of cost me. We take it on the chin. We're all grown-ups here. You win some, you lose some. But overall, relatively happy with where it was. Could have done a lot better, especially as I saw the price down here. But let's not dwell on that. We'll just get upset with ourselves. So Casper, what's happening here? Can I just get rid of that? Just taking up real estate. There's not really too much for me to say on Casper. It's moved as the rest of the market has. It's one of those things where I fundamentally, I'm not, the biggest fan of Casper. I think most people know that. But the meme ability, the support, and the community behind it, you can fight it if you want. But right now, it's actually performing over the last few months very well. Granted, compared to Tau, maybe not so much. The reason I always mention back to Tau is that's because what majority of us are in the majority of our portfolio. But it just hasn't had that move there. And again, daily chart at the moment, we've just gone sideways for the best part of 2 months here. Small dips back to the 200, but again, bought up from it. So that's all we found ourselves falling down towards, the 200 EMA. We need that to catch it. We start closing, we did close below it for 2 candles, but we stuck close to it. We start to fall below that, then I'm going to have to question how much strength Casper has in the short term until we turn this around. Ultimately, a lot of these tokens are going to do what Bitcoin does. I know the likes of Tau and Sui and a few others have defied it. Some meme coins have certainly defied it. But right now, that's where it's looking. And I wanted to, things like, talked about, it wasn't on the 3-day chart. I was looking at this. No, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't near. I'm sure some of these have just perfectly logarithmic versus linear. I might just be making this up now. I swear when I drew it, I'm going to go back to this one. This is what I was drawing it on. So let's have a look. There's definitely some sort of resistance, there. We draw it on the logarithmic. You've probably got, you can kind of see 3-day chart, but that looks like that kind of plays out like that. Casper, no. Link, similar kind of story for Link. So, maybe not actually. Maybe I was stretching with that one. Near render. Don't know where I went in the log. Why did I see? I thought I'd drawn on some of these charts, but I obviously haven't. See it, but what I will say is it's lower high and lower high. Double bottom pattern there, but it's failed and it's come back down. Render, another double bottom. Neckline is definitely breached, but if you did it to the wick, not really. And then a rejection. So, can we see these moves back down? ETH, just been a disappointment. Someone, Solana, it was looking good up until this week. I know there's an open trade on Solana at the moment, but, where the markets are right now, maybe we do just see that come back down. And so for those of you that are in that open trade, having a look at sort of where your stop loss is and take profit zones, I think is definitely going to be important there. But we get to the crux of some other things. So Bitcoin dominance. So yeah, we had it top at sort of 58.5. It's come back down, but this isn't the chart. What chart did I draw it on? A couple of weeks ago. I've got too many of these, but we had this sort of line here. I think it was more from here. And as long as it stays above that, we're in that Bitcoin season rather than anything else. But we could see a fall down to 56 56.5, and it's still sort of bounced back up. I know I don't have any EMAs on here, but that trend line alone kind of shows you. So the strength for me is generally still with Bitcoin. Obviously there are some exceptions to that, but we see that. What have we on total 3? Where's total 3 gone? And then we get to total 3, and I think there's too much more to say than what I already did. That there, but now let's start to have a look at it on the shorter time frames, and that moved back down. You know, double bottom, broken through, Kobo potentially back down. So what we're seeing here, a bit like what we needed to see with Bitcoin, but it didn't happen, is look, you know, we got excited because we took out that high there, but we didn't take this high out. That was lower. And so it's now back to, you know, move up, move down, move up. That's what we need to see. And then when we get above there, we can say it's a trend reversal. But I do like to see that coming back down onto previous resistance, acting as support, hopefully, with a climb back out and through. Anything else really to run through? I don't think so. Taunu, again, nice move up. Are we looking at a double top bit like Tau with a neckline forming? And so if we are, and it plays out, that's looking back down to that level there. So just be careful for Taunu, Zappy. We got that, but I just want to spend that's an hour of me kind of looking at what the worst is. I do think I want to try and provide some optimism. I think that's where I am, because I'm not out. Matter of fact, I've been buying stuff today. And again, you know, spoiler alert to where I see things from that cuddle video. I still feel, take aside what's happened in the Middle East today, that there's still room for bullish momentum within the market. It's only day 1 of October. We have had a trip up today, whether that's called by outside events or market makers utilizing everyone getting excited about October and just hitting it with the first day. We've still got 30 more days of October. And as I mentioned, there's not too many financial news events between now and then, which could majorly disrupt the path that we're going. And, you know, I do look at things like the excitement with the rate cuts, China, you know, turning on their money printer. I think that's going to have an effect. I do. Just China's not open necessarily at the moment. I can't see inflation really falling over in a week and a half's time. I just don't think the events that have been leading up to it, or they'll allow that to necessarily happen. So again, it's going to provide some positive momentum. And for me, really, what the major news event is going to be the decision on the election. And I wouldn't be surprised. It doesn't matter who wins. That's just when they decide that, you know what, we've had enough of this up. We're going to go back down. But I'm going to try and see if I can take advantage of the market in the next 30 days, however that may be. And despite things going down, I still think that... No, that's just too much of a contradiction. I'm prepared to take a risk. Yeah, that's what I'll say. With the markets following what it's done in previous years in the month of October, and actually finding some life within that. And I am just positioning myself that if I need to get out, I will. And that's fine. You know, if we can see that something like that is definitely coming, then I'll go with it. But I don't know what's happened in the last hour since I've gone live in terms of what's going on in the Middle East, but generally, you know, invasions obviously cause crashes, but they are recovered the quickest, I would argue. Invasions, I'm sure it's not disturbances, we'll call that, correct myself. And so this could just be an ideal buying opportunity. And that's how I'm looking at this at the moment. The vast majority of my capital is already in the market, so not too much I can buy without putting more in, but I'm looking at avenues to try and do that. So I hope I don't come off as a super bear, because I'm not. I just, regardless of what's happened, I just cannot ignore that right now. But that doesn't mean that we don't have moves up, or it doesn't have to go all the way back down here. We've seen falls that don't quite get all the way down, and they recover back up, and that might just be where it's at. We've seen again here, this move down, back up, this move down, back up, this move down, back up, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a reattack of that, especially if overnight news comes out of what's gone on and any discussions or conversations we had. Market's going to react, in my opinion, very well to that. So yeah, I feel like I'm jabbering on now, so I think that's probably enough talk for me on something that I'm not fully swept up on there. But I just want to say that I'm not on the right camera. Hopefully that's the full camera now. I will try not to mention UPTober every single call this month. I'm going to try not to. What I'm hoping, though, is we start to see those green roots, and I may not have to say it, but we can just have a look at charts like this instead and just have a big smile on our sales. And I will just leave, I know you can't see it, I will just leave this up as perhaps the final thing. We are in the trading game all about probability. That's the probability that I'm looking for at the moment, and we shall leave it at that. There is a trading pub on Thursday. We have got another cuddle coming up end of November, the Christmas party one. So definitely get yourselves involved on that if you can. I assume it'll be at the same location. Why Boston? But with it being the Christmas party one, I think a few more alcoholic beverages will be imbibed. So yeah, should be a good one. You got any questions or anything else, please feel free to send me a message. I'll try and answer them as best as I can. Otherwise, I will see you in Discord. And failing that, I will hear you on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have a good night. Cheers now. Man, that was waffle for the last 10 minutes.